Hello everyone, my name is Benjamin Solder. I am a second-year medical student at Baylor College of Medicine, and I wanted to do a screencast on an anatomy review of the posterior shoulder intervals and spaces with the incoming medical students that are starting here next week. They'll be diving into kind of the back and shoulder anatomy in the lab in the not too distant future, and this was a good exercise in tutoring then. A disclaimer, I hope our professors for our UH class will forgive me for not using one of the recommended whiteboard tools. I wanted to use the Notes app on my iPad because my iPad and Apple Pencil combination gives me a lot more control than writing with a cursor into an internet browser would be. And this was also a good challenge. I learned quite a bit about taking a screencast from an iPad and how I can also draw in my Notes app as well. I'm also interested, in your review and your comments of this project. Please let me know if physicians use this anatomical knowledge daily. I'm just a little bit curious. But for test questions, the kind of memory hook we're going over will be this figure down here in the bottom left-hand corner. And these are fingers. I hope you recognize them as fingers. But this is our left middle finger, and this is our left index finger. And this is the right index finger, and this is the right middle finger. And I hope you can notice how they're overlapping each other. So the left middle finger goes on top of everything else. The left index finger goes in the very back, and the two fingers from our right hand kind of get placed in between the two scissors of our left hand, if you will. And we're going to use this kind of interesting setup with our fingers to remember the borders specifically of the three intervals and spaces that we have listed or that we're discussing today. So the triangular space, I'll actually draw in blue for you here. This represents our triangular space. This box that we've created with our fingers is the quadrangular space, and this other triangle between the fingers of our right hand is the triangular interval. And the fingers then, if we just remember the fingers, we can remember what the borders are for each of these three spaces, and we just need to remember that the triangular space is with our left hand and the triangular interval is with our right hand. I guess interval has the letter R in it for right hand, if that helps, but that's a pretty minor detail to try and hang on to. But the two fingers of our left hand, it's easier to remember what these two muscles are for the borders of these spaces because they're both a teres. So this is going to be teres minor, and this finger is going to be teres major. And then our right hand is actually going to be two different heads of triceps. So this is going to be the long head of triceps for our right index finger, and this is going to be the lateral head of triceps for our right middle finger. And we overlay the fingers just so with the kind of left middle finger on top of all of the others so that you have the correct anatomical layout, anterior to posterior at least, of how these muscles intersect with each other. So again, this is a posterior view of the right shoulder. So here would be the back of a patient's head with their hair, and here's their shoulder, and the muscles just posterior to the scapula here with our three spaces that we're discussing today. So again, the triangular space we did in blue. The quadrangular space is a nice little square that our fingers created in yellow, and the triangular interval with R from our right hand is the triangle between those two fingers. For the contents of each space, I will just list them here in the different colors because the fingers really help us to remember the borders, the two teres muscles with our left hand and the two heads of triceps with our right hand. But the contents for the triangular space is just the one, the circumflex scapular, circumflex scapular artery. The contents of the quadrangular space, we have first the axillary nerve, and then the posterior circumflex humeral artery. And Finally then, for our triangular interval, we have the radial nerve and the deep artery of the arm. I hope that was helpful. I hope it's nifty to remember the borders and these 3 different spaces then. Yeah, and any feedback you have on this format and how it worked as well as an educational format would be appreciated.